Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Suzy Green. I'm the CEO and founder of the Positivity Institute. Someone has raised their hand. I'm just wondering whether Claudia, we have Claudia from our office in the background just checking to make sure everything's all right. Everyone can hear me okay, hopefully. So it's a great pleasure to be here tonight with my colleague and friend Lisa Baker. Lisa's a Senior Associate of the Positivity Institute, and Lisa and I met, I'm not quite sure how many years ago now, Lisa, possibly...
A few now, Suzy, yes.
Now. And just to give a little bit of background, I had been working with Ballarat Grammar, where Lisa works currently part-time, and I went along to hear Lisa present at a positive education conference that was hosted by Geelong Grammar a few years ago now. And I was so impressed with Lisa's presentation, and so I had an opportunity to chat to her about the work I'd been doing primarily with the senior school at Ballarat Grammar. And Lisa had said, wow, you know, there's so many wonderful opportunities for positive psychology in early childhood education. And I had also been working with two services in New South Wales at the time. It was quite pioneering work, given it's not really my background. So I was collaborating with two early childhood services and really relying on their expertise on how the science of positive psychology might work. But now, as you can see, I've got the great opportunity to work with Lisa, who absolutely has expertise in this space. So I'm going to give a little introduction, and then I'm really going to hand over to Lisa to guide us through the webinar tonight, where I'm going to provide an introduction to wellbeing. I'm not sure how many people on the call tonight actually have any experience in positive psychology, and I'm not sure whether we're able to, we could have actually done a poll in hindsight, but be very keen to know how many people actually do have a background in positive psychology or who are very, very new to the field. So we're going to make the assumption that there are some new, faces and new people attending tonight. So I'm going to give a very basic introduction to the science of positive psychology and wellbeing. And then Lisa's going to really delve more into what that might look like, or what it does look like in an early childhood educator setting, if you like. And it is quite a unique professional and personal development opportunity, because as far as Lisa and I are aware, there hasn't been very much happening in terms of positive psychology applications in early childhood education. And in fact, Lisa and myself and our colleague Daniela Falecki, who was an educator, published a couple of years ago a paper called Positive Early Childhood Education, Broadening the Reach of Positive Psychology into Early Childhood Education. And that was published in an open access journal, and we're going to send you the link after tonight so you can read a little bit about, I guess, our thinking around how you can possibly combine, or you absolutely can combine, the fields of positive psychology, early childhood education, and also Reggio Emilia, which Lisa might talk about tonight also. So it is quite unique and it's quite exciting, because I might suggest that many of you on the call tonight are actually pioneers in this field, because again, as I've said, there aren't many that we're aware of early childhood education services that are explicitly, and when I say they're not doing it, they absolutely, everybody is in some way or another. I'm absolutely sure that you are doing aspects of positive psychology, but we're talking much more about the explicit usage of the research, and in a very strategic and sustainable way in the workplace also. So before I do, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our business. Most of our work is in the workplace, in the corporate sector. So we have some quite large projects running at the moment with a variety of organisations. And I've been really fortunate to have been involved in the growth of positive education in Australia and globally in the last 10 years. And as I mentioned before, most of the work I've done has been in senior high school or primary. I've also published an article in higher education for anyone that might be interested in that. Happy to share that article too. And our work in schools or positive education is what I usually say is is absolutely my most meaningful work, because generally most people that work in education haven't had any training or any education in their pre-service teacher education, if you like, and most of their professional development has been around providing, I guess, pedagogy or services for the children, not so much for themselves. And Lisa's going to talk a lot about the importance of learning it and living it before you teach it and embed it tonight as well. We also have some individual services. We offer some virtual coaching services, and that might be something that you might want to check out on the website if you're interested. We've got lots of resources. We do like to help, so if there's anything that Lisa talks about tonight or myself, we're very happy. Please email us and we can send you an article, we can connect you to somebody. We'll do our absolute best to help. Our mission at the Positivity Institute is to create a flourishing world, or to be part of a group of people that are working to create a flourishing world. And right now we really do have a big challenge on our hands, as everyone would be aware of. But we're more determined than ever to make this mission, bring this mission to life, if you like. And we absolutely believe that through education is one of the primary ways that we can go about doing that. So we spent a lot of our time talking about the F word, and I'm not sure if anybody's guessed yet what that stands for, but it's certainly not rude or offensive. It in fact stands for the word flourishing or flourish. So it's a term that's used extensively in the field of positive psychology. There are many approaches, I guess, to defining or unpacking the term flourishing, but very simply, it is about, I'm actually jumping ahead a little bit. It's really about feeling good and functioning well. So another way to think about it is when you're flourishing, you're experiencing high levels of well-being, psychological well-being, and low levels of psychological distress. So just going back a little bit. So now might be a moment for yourself to reflect and take stock. Are you flourishing? And in fact, the research that's been conducted over a number of years has shown that less than 20% of the population are flourishing. So that's a fairly sad state of affairs, although 50% of us are moderately mentally healthy, and that's not too bad. It's not too bad. Whereas we know that that most people are familiar with the rates around mental illness, and you may not be aware that there is also a subcategory called languishing, and we know that there's also a percentage of people that are not clinically diagnosable, for example, diagnosable for a clinical depressive disorder, but they're certainly not feeling good, as we said, and they're certainly not functioning very well. And given the current circumstances, I know I was just hearing the chairman of Lifeline being interviewed this week, and he was talking about the significantly increased rates of calls to Lifeline during the last 3 months. So we are well aware of the challenges, particularly in education, that people are facing, and that now might be a time when you're really needing to put every single skill that you have, psychological skill, into place to not just survive, but hopefully to thrive. Be also very interested to hear what your greatest challenges are right now. And again, welcome emails after tonight if you'd like to give us some feedback around that as well. So I mentioned flourishing is experiencing high levels of well-being and low levels of psychological distress or mental illness, if you like. Similarly with well-being, there are many definitions. There's still debates occurring in the academic communities about how to define it and what are the key components of it. Lisa's going to introduce you to a fairly simple but evidence-based model tonight that will also help unpack it a little bit more for you. But you can see the World Health Organization define it as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So I'm assuming if you're working in early childhood education that you may have already seen the fabulous film Inside Out, but if you haven't, make sure that you do. As a clinical psychologist by profession, I was extremely happy. It made me very happy to see that Disney had actually consulted with some psychology experts, and they were able to, in a very user-friendly way, if you like, particularly for children and their parents and adults, be able to highlight the full range of human emotions. And first and foremost, I want to, bust any myths that you might have about positive psychology being about being happy all the time or being positive all the time. And I usually say, as a clinical psychologist, they will lock you up if you are. It's not quite normal. In fact, we'd be more concerned if you weren't expressing appropriate levels of fear and sadness, in response to circumstances that are occurring in your life. So why do we need it? Well, there's certainly a mental health imperative right now. We need to be much more proactive than we have been. Historically, as you would know, most people seek help after the curveballs come. And we need to really be educating in schools and in workplaces the core skills of psychological skills, and also providing a literacy. And Lisa might talk a little bit more about wellbeing literacy, which is a passion of hers as well. But in a very brief way, we've provided a snapshot here on this slide tonight. There's so much research over the last 20 years in particular to show that people that are experiencing high levels of wellbeing pretty much do better in every domain in life. You can see there they have fewer mental health issues. They tend to have even better jobs and pay, be better leaders. And we also know now that emotions are contagious. And most of us know that from a negative perspective when you come away from a really draining interaction. We also know that you can be a positive energizer, and through your interactions, through your high quality connections that you have, which can be very brief, you can actually energize people, and people can walk away feeling energized from those interactions. And again, Lisa may speak to that tonight. The other area that I want to really highlight, and I have been in a number of webinars I've been running over the last 3 months, is there is a significant body of research to show that when we're stressed, particularly anxious, which a lot of people are right now, that it has a very negative effect on our immune system. And given the current circumstances, we need our immune systems to be robust right now. And we now know, and again, a growing body of research to show that positive emotions, and there's 10 different positive emotions actually, it's not just about being happy, but experiencing these positive emotions actually boosts our immune system. So again, we need to counteract all the negativity that we're surrounded by and that's on the nightly news, and we need to balance that out with focusing on the things that are going well, on our strengths and the positivity that does exist, often alongside the negativity. So we're not saying disregard the negativity, but we're trying to balance it out and create more positivity. So again, I'm coming to the end of my section. I'm about to hand over to Lisa, but for those that are fairly new to the field of positive psychology, this is the definition that we prefer to use. It is a scientific study. There is now over 20 years of research. It does sit on the field of humanistic psychology. For anyone that did any undergrad psych, you might be familiar with wonderful psychologists such as Abraham Maslow that spoke about self-actualization, Carl Rogers that spoke about the fully functioning individual, and it was actually Professor Martin Seligman that then formally launched the field in 1998 in his presidential speech for the American Psychological Association. And it's not about being happy, as we said all the time. It really is about experiencing optimal levels of human functioning. And there are various ways, again, that we can define that or describe that. There's also been a number of meta-analyses where they pull together numerous studies and they look at the effect size. There has been a recent study to show that we do need more research. We absolutely, I'm not saying we don't, but it's very promising at this stage. And of course, some areas such as mindfulness, the amounts of research have just exponential over the last 6 or 7 years in particular. And when you look at interventions like goal setting, there's over 40 years of research to show that certain types of goals and certain types of motivation for goals have significant impacts on our well-being. So we're not just drawing on the last 20 years. There is a long-standing history in psychology of some of these other types of approaches that can be used proactively. So I'm going to stop now and hand over to Lisa to let her introduce herself and her background and really talk to you as an early childhood educator. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Suzy, and hello everybody. I've just been busting to get started. Thank you. I'm so excited about this opportunity that we have to speak to you, for me to speak to you as an early childhood educator, and for you as an early childhood educator, for us to hear what's important for us. I'm really pleased that Suzy has given that lovely introduction in regards to positive psychology being about the science of human flourishing. And I think it's important for us, particularly now in this crazy time that we're living in, for us to be looking at our own flourishing. Are we feeling good and are we functioning well? There is a lot of great news around being an early childhood educator, and this won't be new to you, but I am going to share it. We know from the research that early childhood education services are really crucial. They're crucial for children, for their learning and their development and their well-being across all of the domains of development: physical, social, emotional, cognitive. We know that the first 5 years of life are critical for children. It's a critical window, and the neuroscience has told us that it's an opportunity in that first 5 years for children to develop their capacity to learn. And also, early childhood is so important for the development of children's well-being. We know in Australia, and I know there are people dialing in tonight from outside of Australia, so I apologise for the Australian-centric. However, we know that children having a strong sense of well-being is one of our key outcomes. In fact, it is a key outcome across global curriculums. I have looked into that. But we know that early childhood education is important for children's well-being. And the research that's coming out in the last 5 and 10 years is also letting us know that our role as educators, early childhood educators, services, interactions, experiences, are really influential for children in those first 5 years. So the good news for us is what we do is really important. And also, now, oops, did that slide go? Yeah, thank you, next slide. Yep. Sorry, we had a bit of a play with this earlier. Is my slide going to go? Claudia, can you check if that slide is going to go across? Because I seem to have lost contact. It's, thank you. The good news for us too is that we care. We care about our work. If you're here on this webinar now, for some people it is school holidays, you're here because you care. You care about the work that you're doing, and I hope that you're caring about yourself in the work that you do. And we also know that our work is really quite rewarding. When I have surveyed early childhood educators and asked them, what is it that's really rewarding about your work? What brings you joy? This is one of the, some of the comments that have come up. Claudia, if you can click that for me. This is going to be tricky. Can we have the next slide? I don't know how well you can see that on your screen, but the bigger the words here is in response to the survey, how many times people gave this answer. So you can see, if you can see on your screen there, some of the things that really brings us joy as educators, some of the rewards in our work for us is watching children's achievements, being able to facilitate achievements for children. And again, the science backs that up, how important we are in children's development and then being able to achieve. Also, as educators, we find joy in helping children grow and learn. We wouldn't be in the role if we didn't find joy in that. And our relationships with children are important too. So that's some of the good news. We're really, really important. The science is telling us that, the children are telling us that, and we do find joy in our work. Thanks, Claudia. But there is actually a little bit of not so good news as well. And we know this. I'm not telling you anything new if you're an early childhood educator. And like me, you spend most of your day up to your armpits in 3 or 4-year-olds or younger children. We know it's really demanding. It's physically demanding. It's also socially and emotionally quite draining. The research is showing that early childhood educators have this big demand on them, and that we can have up to 1,000 interpersonal contacts a day. That might seem like a lot, but you know, if you're in a room with 23-year-old children, they're coming at you the whole time. We've got all these contacts going on. I'm not surprised that it's 1,000 in a day, but that is draining, that is difficult. And that is why this idea of looking after our own well-being, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a minute, is so important to me. I really want us to take some time to stop and think about ourselves. I can have the slide, Claudia. The research has shown that we are teaching as a profession is one of the most stressed professions in the world. And particularly early childhood educators, so many pressures on our time, on us managing the needs of our children and our own needs. And we do tend to put the children first. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I think that's important. But what I really want to spend some time on here tonight is actually putting ourselves first. It's a hard thing for us to say, to put ourselves first, because traditionally we don't, but it's time for us to do that. Thanks, Claudia. So I beg your pardon. So one of the things when I have asked people about what's stressful about our work, and if you can see this slide, you will see the bigger the word, the more people reported that that was stressful. And I don't need to tell you the demands on us in regards to paperwork and working with colleagues, not enough time to do things. And particularly we have found in our current COVID-19 climate, perhaps the lack of recognition that we have as educators, that we are out there, we have stayed open, we have kept working, we have been in a sense frontline essential workers, and it's not necessarily recognised. So these are the things that can drain us. If we think about, thanks Claudia, our well-being in regards to a cup, our cup is getting empty a lot of the time. But back to the good news, something that I really want to convey is that we are crucial to early childhood education. As the educators, our role is really, really important, but so is our well-being. Our well-being is vital. We can't do the great job that we do. We can't produce those incredible outcomes for children in that critical first 5 years that the research is showing that we do if we aren't feeling good and functioning well. But a really good thing that's coming out of the research that I'm so excited about is that our well-being is actually malleable. It's a process. It's not a product. We don't get well-being and then stop. We can actually mold it. It can evolve. We can influence our own well-being. We do have influence over that. Thank you. So we can move ourselves from places of just coping or maybe languishing into where we're performing really well, and like Suzy said, we're flourishing. So we can move from functioning to flourishing. And this is where the field of positive psychology has come in to help us a great deal. Traditional psychology over the last 100 years has done an excellent job at helping us when we are suffering, when we're experiencing mental illness, when we're languishing. It's given us some great insights, some strategies, research, tools to help bring us from suffering or pain into being able to cope. What's really exciting now is we're learning, as Suzy said, from that last 20 years of research and the incredible amount of research that's currently going on in the field of positive psychology, how to use those skills to take us from just coping into really flourishing. Thank you. So that's what I want for us as early educators. This is my invitation to you to take some time out for ourselves, because there are strategies that we can use to be our best selves. And that's what I'm just going to spend the next few minutes looking at. So if you've got a pen and paper, now's the time to get it out and write down, because I hope I'm going to leave you with a few strategies to take away with you, some gems to pop in your back pocket and pull out next time you're at work or at home and want to think about your own well-being. So Suzy did start mention at the start about the wellbeing model of Martin Seligman, PERMA. We're going to have a quick look at that. I want to take you through a short exercise and a bit of homework for you in recalling your best self. I do hope we've got some time to stop and take 3 deep breaths. And then the other strategy I want to give you is us at the Positivity Institute and me to talk about our webinar series that's coming up. So first of all, we're going to have a look at PERMA. Thanks, Claudia. So PERMA is a wellbeing model. It's come out of the science of positive psychology, but it is also built on lots of other areas of psychology, as Suzy was talking about, that deep well of history that psychology has given us the strategies. But in a nutshell, PERMA is an acronym, so you can see the letters there, PERMA, and it's a model that says if we work on these areas in our life, it's a pathway to our well-being. PERMA has grown over the last 20 years as well, and some people are adding extra areas to it in regards to health, so that's the little H down the bottom, but I'm just going to look at PERMA itself, the original model. What I love about PERMA, and there are lots of wellbeing models out there, lots of places you can go and look for ways to build your wellbeing, but what I love about the PERMA model is it's really relatable. As I talk about this, I'm sure it's going to resonate with you. You'll find yourself nodding your head, but it also resonates really well with early childhood, with our pedagogy, with our philosophy, with the underlying theories. None of this that I talk about is going to be new to you as an early childhood educator. We do this, we are this. But I think knowing that it is underpinned by the science of positive psychology, by so much research, it gives us an opportunity to elevate what we already do, to know what we're doing well, and to start to think about those ways for ourselves. We do all these things with children, it's time to think about them for ourselves too. So the letters in PERMA, they're not actually in any order. No one area is more important than the other. So I'm actually going to start right in the middle with the R. And the reason is because I know you are going to understand that relationships are one of the core pieces of well-being. We know as early childhood educators, we live this, we breathe this, we teach this. Relationships are key to our well-being. We know in our work with children, if we have strong relationships with people, with the children, with our families, that we all flourish through that. So I guess the strategy that comes out of that for us, not in our work, because we know this, we do this, but for ourselves as people, to stay connected. I know that's really hard at the times we are in now, but look at us all, we're on a webinar. We didn't think we were going to be doing this before COVID, but here we are connecting through technology. So I'd really encourage you, yes, look at your relationships at work, but don't forget the relationships you have outside of your work. Step back and prioritize some of those relationships outside of your work. We are human beings. We're not human doings. Let's stop some of that doing that we're doing at work and think about our relationships outside of work. Who can you prioritize to spend some time with virtually or physically in the next week? Who's someone you haven't reached out to? Who's a really important relationship to you? If we think about our well-being as a cup that we're filling up, a cup and a saucer, we need to fill up our own cup until it completely overflows. And then the saucer is how we go around and fill up everybody else's cup. We don't fill from our own cup, we need to fill from our saucer. What's a relationship that you have that you can go and spend some time with in the next week to fill up your cup? I'd really encourage you to do that. So that's the R in PERMA. It's not rocket science for us. Going to the top, positive emotions. Suzy did touch on this. The research is certainly showing that if we are experiencing and able to pursue love, joy, pride, awe, contentment, happiness, all of those beautiful positive emotions, they fill up our cup and they broaden our thinking and they build our repertoire of social and emotional resources. Happiness, or any of those positive emotions, aren't important just for the moment. It's great when we share a laugh or we experience some awe or wonder, but the research is actually showing that that builds further on. So I'd really encourage you to think about what brings you joy. What brings you love, contentment, pride? No, sorry, we're staying on PERMA. What can you do in the next week that is going to build some positive emotions for you? And really seek that out. Take them, savor them. Know that when you're investing in positive emotions, you're investing in your well-being. The E is about engagement, and we know this in regards to the early years learning framework in Australia. The word engagement or engage is actually used over 60 times. So I'm not telling you as an early childhood educator anything you don't already know about engagement. But what I would encourage you is think about what engages you as an educator, as a person. Where do you find flow and joy? Is it in the garden? Is it reading books? Is it cooking? Is it on your bike? Is it like me, talking? Think about what engages you in your life and spend some time doing that. We're very good at going to work, coming home, bringing work home. Spend some time finding what engages you. And this is the same with meaning. The M in PERMA is about meaning or purpose. If you're here on this webinar now, you find a great deal of meaning and purpose in your work. There's also meaning and purpose for us outside of our lives too. There's rich evidence to show that if we are pursuing our sense of meaning and purpose, professionally or personally, that we're going to have strong well-being. So my invitation to you is think about what brings you meaning and purpose in your life. Yes, in your professional life, but also in your personal life too. Stop and write down, what do you find meaningful? And then go out and do some of that in the coming weeks. And accomplishment refers to the fact that we're actually, as humans, we are goal-seeking beings. We are motivated, we want to strive for things, we want to seek accomplishment. We know that children do too, and we're very good at helping children seek their own accomplishment. My encouragement to you is think about, what do you find joy in regards to accomplishing? And it doesn't have to be big goals. I'm not talking about running a marathon. Maybe for you, a 10-minute walk is going to be an accomplishment. Maybe a cooking dinner for your family, finding a great book to read. Think about some small goals. Don't put yourself aside, put yourself first. What do I want to achieve in the next week? It might be cleaning out that cupboard. Although if you're like me, you've probably already cleaned out all your cupboards. Think of something you want to accomplish for your own self, and know that all of these things, these elements of positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment are going to help you flourish. They are pathways to flourishing. There's lots more you can learn about the model of PERMA, and it certainly resonates with our work. But I just want you to know that all those things I've spoken about are great ways that you can fill up your own cup and work towards your own well-being. Thanks, Claudia. So the next slide, I'm actually going to try and stop talking for 1 minute. I want you to stop and think about a day when you have been flourishing. And it actually might not be a whole day, because I know at the moment it's hard to find a whole day that we are flourishing. But think about a day, a moment, an hour, perhaps in the last week or further out, if you need to go that further out, when you were your best self. Maybe this is at work, or maybe it's at home. But stop and think for a moment. When you were your best self, what were you doing? Where were you? Was it at work or was it at home? Who were you with? Think about PERMA. Think about, what positive emotions were you experiencing? What were you engaged in? What was giving you flow in that flourishing moment or day? What relationships? Who were the people there? What were the relationships that you were leaning on? What was giving you meaning or purpose in that moment or in that day? And what were you accomplishing for yourself? So I will stop speaking just for a moment and think about your own flourishing day or moment. What were you doing? Who was there? What elements of PERMA were in play for you? I can't stop talking. Okay, that's enough time. Yes, and do feel free to comment in the chat box. So I have written down there, do this one at home, because it's a really beautiful exercise to give yourself the time to sit and write down about you at your best self, and then go through it with a PERMA comb. Look at it, where was the positive emotion, the engagement, relationships, meaning and accomplishment. And then when you can find those for yourself, when you can see what they are, repeat those strategies. If you found that a flourishing day happens when you're with a certain person, seek that person out, intentionally spend time with that person. If you found that a flourishing day for you is when you are experiencing awe and wonder in nature, set that intention to spend more time in nature. If you find that you have a flourishing day when you're setting goals and achieving them, hello, I love that. Write down those goals, set those goals, tick them off. Don't call your to-do list a to-do list, call it a ta-da list. Find some things that bring you joy and intentionally set out to pursue them. Because then that way you know that you're going to be following this pathway, these pillars to well-being. You're going to be filling up your own cup. Fill up your own cup so that it overflows into the saucer, and then you can pour into other people's cup from your saucer. Don't pour into other people's cup from your cup, because then your cup will be empty. Fill up your own cup with those things from PERMA and from your flourishing day, and set those out with it and seek those out with intention. Thank you, Claudia. So I am looking at the time here, but another beautiful technique is breathing. Now I know we're all breathing, we're always breathing, but how often are you breathing without even realizing it? And it's so important. Breathing is such an important technique. I think Claudia might be able to send some of these techniques out to us, but this is a beautiful 3 breaths technique, which I borrowed from Justin Robinson. And it's obviously take 3 deep breaths. But the first deep breath is to notice your physical body, what's happening in your physical body, and breathe out and consciously let some of that tension go away. The second breath is about tuning into your positive emotions in that breath. So as you breathe in, think about what you're grateful for, because gratitude is a positive emotion. So breathe in and then breathe out. Right now, I am grateful for. And you could think about PERMA. Am I grateful for some of my relationships? Or am I grateful for my purpose that I'm having my work or my life? Am I grateful for my moments of engagement? So breathing out and thinking about gratitude. And the third breath is about that intention. When I was talking about living your best life, your best self, and then taking some of that and do it intentionally, think about how you're going to move forward with intentional. So I am actually going to steal a minute from our webinar, and we're going to do this breath together because it really is beautiful and important. So if you've got something in front of you, put it down. I'm going to invite you with me to take that first deep breath and notice your physical body. So breathing in, breathe out and release that tension. Your next breath is about breathing in and think about what you're grateful for in this right moment right now. I'm grateful for you out there in Webland. Last breath, breathing in and think about the intention you want for right now. I know that's really tricky to do on a webinar, but this is a beautiful thing you can, if you've got this in your mind, you can do sitting in the car while you're waiting to pick up your children from school. You can do it before you go to bed. You can do it at lunchtime instead of being in the staff room and on your phone. It's a beautiful 3 breaths technique, thinking about what's happening for you right now, eliciting some positive emotion and setting an intention for your own well-being to go forward. Thanks, Claudia. So this leads me to the exciting part. This is something that's really personal to me. It's about how can we be building our best selves, and how I can maybe share with you, if you'd like to join me on a journey, some of the wellbeing tools for us to flourish. As Suzy said before, positive psychology is not just about happy, happy, joy, joy and all the fun stuff. Positive psychology recognises that life is full of emotions. It's not just about being happy, it's about embracing all emotions. We know that there are muddy puddles in life. We know that sometimes we fall flat on our faces in the mud. But there are so many beautiful tools that have come from both traditional psychology and positive psychology to help us get through those times, to help us maybe jump over some of those puddles. I don't know if in your work as an early childhood educator you do any bush kinder. Pop it in the chat for me. I'd love to know if there's some other bush kinder people out there. But when I take the children to bush kinder, and this is one of the children that I take, we get them in their wet weather gear. We get their gumboots, we get their coats, their gloves, their hats, their beanies. We really equip them well to go out in the bush and to be in the mud. What I want for you is to give you some strategies to equip yourself to go into your life with well-being, to fill up your cup and to flourish in the work that we do. The work that we do really does need gumboots and wet weather gear sometimes. So I know that from the field of positive psychology, there are great strategies that we can use as early childhood educators to help us flourish. And sometimes we don't have these tools until we have fallen in the mud. Sometimes we don't know these key psychological skills until we're with a counsellor or until we're with somebody who can help us learn these things. What I want is for us to get our wet weather gear on first, learn these skills for ourselves, and then we'll do the beautiful work that we do with children. When I look at what is available in professional development for early childhood educators, there's so much about the children. And that's great. I want us to learn about the children. I want us to be the best practitioners that we can be. But where's the education for us? And I would really this is my invitation to you. I'm going to talk about the webinar series that's coming up. And I would love it if some of you would join me on this series to equip our own well-being. I'm going to be there and I'm going to be talking and having a great time. And I invite you to join me to put yourself first and learn about the really important skills that we can have to build our own well-being, to feel good and function well. So we have got 3 webinars coming up. The first one is called Building Our Superpowers. So I don't know if anybody of you out there are familiar with the character strengths via character strengths surveys. You might be familiar though with other strengths profiles. We hear about it in business. Lots of business people do the Gallup, and there's lots of talk in business about using your strengths. I think it's time that we as educators find our own strengths, find out what they are, and then use them intentionally. So that's what our first webinar is going to be about. It's about building well-being through our superpower of strengths. And yes, you can take the values in action character strengths survey free online, and we'll perhaps ask Claudia to pop that into the information that goes out to you after that. I want to talk about the psychological science of character strengths and how you can use them, and give you some takeaways for using those in your work and in your personal life. So that's our first webinar, our superpower of strengths. Secondly, we are going to look at self-care. We know as early childhood educators, we're so good at caring for everybody else. We care for the children, for our parents, for our colleagues, for our family. We're really good at looking after other people and being really compassionate to other people, but we're not so good at doing that for ourselves. And I would say to you that self-care is not selfish, it's absolutely crucial. It's one of my absolute passions, is for us to develop some self-compassion, some mindfulness, to be in the space that we're in and care for ourselves. So I asked Suzy if I could have a whole webinar to talk about that, and she said yes, so that's what I'm going to talk about in webinar number 2, Being Our Best Selves Through Self-Compassion. Hi Lisa, thank you. And then talking about some of those key psychological skills that we might learn if we go to a counsellor, let's learn them now. So the third webinar I want to talk about is psychological flexibility, understanding what some of our motivations and barriers are, and really working on a strategy for ourselves for getting around those and moving forward. So thanks, Claudia. So that's just my little invitation to you. Claudia can send you out the information, but if you jump on the Positivity Institute webpage. You can find that there. That's my timer to say, Lisa, stop talking. Also, get onto Facebook and have a look, like the Positivity Institute Facebook page, because we're going to be promoting these webinars there. And because I'm really passionate about this, I've asked Suzy if we can try and make this as accessible as possible to early childhood educators, because I know some of us pay for our own professional development. So there is a code there, so you can have the third one for free if you would like. So I think that's it. That's my thing. I hope there's been some things in there that you can actually take away and use now in regards to thinking about your best self and PERMA, and also that beautiful breathing strategy. And we might be close to the end. Suzy, stop talking, Lisa.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much, Lisa. I don't know about everyone else, but I could just sit and listen to Lisa all day. And I wish I was a student in her class. So I do hope that you do join Lisa, because she didn't possibly share her background, but she does have a master's in applied positive psychology through the University of Melbourne. And she's also currently working there part-time. And looking to do a PhD. We're not too far away, Lisa. Is that right?
As soon as I can.
As soon as she can. Oh, fantastic. So we just wanted to note, of course, we're very passionate, as you can see, about the proactive promotion of wellbeing, but we're also very passionate about encouraging people to seek help, and particularly, I guess, therapeutic help. And having worked myself as a clinical psychologist for many years, and I know that in the last 20 years we've come a long way. Everyone's talking about mental health a lot more than what they were before. We have Are You OK days, but we still have quite a challenge in terms of people actively seeking psychological support or other types of support. So there are certainly different organisations that you can access. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We don't provide counselling, therapeutic interventions, but we certainly can recommend if you are looking for someone as well. So Lisa, do you want to do a bit of a recap, or do you want me to do that?
What was all that again? Don't get me started talking again, Suzy. I guess I just ask questions if you would like to in the chat box, because I'm happy to sit here and keep talking. Suzy might have to go, but I can keep talking. But I guess we just wanted to remind you that wellbeing is so important for our health and our work and our life, that there are positive psychological interventions we can use to build our own wellbeing, because it is malleable. Some of that great news about early childhood education, how important we are as educators. We really need to remember that we are contributing so much. That there are strategies we can use, that PERMA acronym of positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning and accomplishment. Take some time to think about your best self. Remember to breathe. And if you would love to learn some more, I do invite you to come on the webinar series, but ask some questions.
Yeah, we'd love to. If you'd like to put any questions in to the chat box, very happy. We've got a little bit more time if you have any questions to answer. I just wanted to follow up on Lisa. I love the way that you spoke about the PERMA comb, and I love that. But there's actually
just came out, Suzy.
I love it. But there's some great research, which Lisa's probably familiar with as well, called prioritising positivity. And we know that there are individual differences, so from person to person, as to how much people actually explicitly think about the activities, like Lisa was saying, or the people or the places that we know give us a mood boost. And so we know that people that actually do that do report high levels of well-being. And we also know from, again, 20 years of research on positive emotions, that it seems to create an upward spiral. So you engage in these activities, it broadens your mind, you actually see more opportunities, you're more helpful, altruistic, you're more likely to reach out to people, see the similarities, even if people have very diverse backgrounds. So yeah, there's a whole range of benefits which then create this upward spiral, which is what we really need to create, rather than a downward spiral, which is often what happens in clinical disorders like depression, for example. So the other
There's
thing...
a question, and I think it's for me, which means I get to talk again.
You go.
Somebody has asked about the research in regards to positive psychology in the early years. So yes, that's what I am doing. I'm very fortunate to be a part of the Wellbeing, Literacy and Language research stream at Melbourne University. So what we are looking at there is wellbeing literacy being the mindful use of language for and about wellbeing. There's lots of strategies that we can use for wellbeing, but most of them are underpinned by language. And as early childhood educators, we know how important language is and how it develops so rapidly in those early years. So language is a tool that we use every day. In fact, it's a tool that we never put down. I never put down talking. So I'm really fortunate to be involved in that. I'm writing a paper at the moment in regards to wellbeing literacy in early childhood education. And for anyone who was able to be at the Saman and Slattery conference at the start of the year before we got locked down, I spoke about wellbeing literacy there. So that's what I'm hoping my further research will be in regards to wellbeing literacy in early childhood, because everything that we are doing in early childhood, we are, now that I've taken you very, very quickly through PERMA, you will see that PERMA sits under everything that we do as early childhood educators. So we are building wellbeing all the time, and also through the work we do with children, we are building children's language for and about wellbeing. So that's what my research is going to be in for the rest of my life.
Fantastic, Lisa. And we might put together just a brief document with some key, I mean, I've certainly got some academic articles. I'm not sure if that appeals to everyone, but Lisa might also have some other user-friendly texts that you might recommend, Lisa, that we could also recommend.
Yeah, there's a couple through Early Childhood Australia, so I might pop those on because they're accessible for people. Yep.
Fantastic. And I think the only other thing I wanted to mention is that if you have been to our website before, you probably know that one of our key areas is in coaching and evidence-based coaching, coaching psychology, which we use to actually, well, in a variety of ways to help people in their own self-development and well-being, but we also use it as a tool, as a transfer of training tool, because the research, as many of you as educators will know, that it doesn't always stick, and we need to look for methodologies to actually put it into practice in our lives. So if you're interested for yourself individually or for your workplace, that is something that we do offer. All of our coaches have master's level qualifications, and so yes, so don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested or want some more information there. But again, thank you to everyone that's logged on tonight, and it's wonderful to see people from across the world. This is, again, one of the beauties of doing this virtually, and I do hope you join Lisa for the webinars, because I think she's absolutely brilliant. And yes, and again, don't hesitate to reach out if we can help with anything else in any possible way. So thank you, Lisa. Any final comments that I've missed, or? I don't think so.
I think, Susie, someone might have asked about the discount code for the 3 webinars. So Claudia can send that out, but it's just PI friend, Positivity Institute friend. There we go. Good.
There it is.
Back one more. Yep.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Pamela. It was a great webinar.
Thank you to everyone who joined us. Have a lovely evening, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Hi to Fiona. I only just saw that. Bye for now.
Bye.